So hi everyone, I'm Roland and I'm very happy to have Daniel Deoliveira as my partner for this discussion. And I read one of his papers about the law and Christianity, how a new perspective on interpreting Saul's doctrine or the Apostle Paul's doctrine on the law and in general Christianity and the law. I found it very interesting and I recommend it to everyone. And let me just pass it on to Daniel. And please just introduce yourself, whatever you want people to know about you, Daniel. Welcome.
Hello, everybody. Yeah, my name is Daniel. I'm from Brazil originally, but today I live in Turkey. I did my master's degree here in religious studies, in an Islamic university. So you ask, how come you're talking about the Judaism and the law in Islamic university? Yes, because my friend Muslims, they were very, very curious about this subject, especially because I am a Christian, believer of the law. I keep the law and the Torah, and so it was interesting to me to see these debates and religious studies and all the dynamics between religions, religious dialogue. So I was curious about that, and then my advisor, he mentioned about Paul and how it would be interesting to show Muslims the beliefs of the law. So you went in this search and writing, about the law and the Pauline's perspective on the law, and I saw some themes that were recurrent, very very current in the um, in the subject of the New Testament and law and so on. So I went into definitions of of law into the New Testament. I went to search Paul's view, especially of what is law. The word logos in no, it's not logos. Sorry, nomos in the New Testament, the Greek word, and his definition of nomos. And then I went through all this, and yes, so it came up this thesis. So that's it.
Okay, excellent. And if we are here, what would you say? You're Christian. Is there any denomination you belong to?
Yeah, I grew up in a Christian context in Brazil. I would say like a Protestant church, and I would go and I wouldn't even, be very attend the church and with my parents and everything. I would play drums in the worship times and so on. But always very like light and never very interested in the Bible and in the religious studies, in the religious life. So I start researching actually when I was around 17 or something. And then I start studying actually the Bible deeper with the Adventists. So the Seventh Day Adventists, the church and so on. So I start attending there, and learning a lot. And this was perhaps my first contact deeper with scripture and, with the biblical tradition, the biblical narratives, the classical doctrines and everything. So I started studying it. I went to college. I did my bachelor's degree in theology. And then I met my wife. We came to a program in the Middle East. We were studying here. And then she is like an engineer, so she studied here. And then I got the opportunity to study again a master's degree in religious studies. So basically, that was my it came to me like interest that actually it just I kept going deeper and deeper in this and learning Hebrew, learning Greek, and learning all the context. It was very pretty amazing. Yeah.
Right, excellent. And did you say you started with Adventist? Because I figured that you have a few times you mention Adventism in your work, but would you still consider yourself an Adventist now?
Yes, I am an Adventist. Yes, I'm still an Adventist, and I pretty much agree with most of the doctrines of the Adventists. and there is 28 beliefs, and
Yeah.
among them are the doctrines of the sanctuary, which is biblical. I mean, it's all through the Old Testament or the Tanakh, and
Yes.
also in the New, and also the Ten Commandments, the law. I pretty much, I really,
You agree?
I
Mhm.
keep this, and I am Adventist. Yes,
Uh-huh. Because
that's why we call Seventh-day Adventist.
Seventh-day Adventist. Have I mentioned that I'm doing my bachelor's in Hungary in the Seventh-day Adventist college, the university?
Really?
Yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah, because
That's awesome.
yeah, I if I finish, I want to do masters, but I might move to another institution. Nonetheless, it was because they don't have school on Saturdays or teachings on Saturdays, and I keep Saturdays, and that was the main reason. But I love it. It's very good, actually. I learned so much, so
Yes,
much. I wouldn't say.
that's good.
Yeah, it's excellent. Everybody's very kind and great. Although it's I'm not full time, so there's very little time to like contact time with the tutors.
Hmm.
Nonetheless, I like it. Okay, so that's a. And would you just? You touched on this, but in general, what do you think about the law and Christianity nowadays?
Yeah, this is a
How do you
very
see this?
nowadays. Yeah, as I came from a Christian, I mean, I am a Christian since I was born, and Adventists, they call themselves Christians, but it depends on the country. It can be more like another tradition and so on than the Christians. Some people would
Yeah.
say that, even here when I live in Turkey. You know, for me, Christianity today, in a whole, like I would say more into the Protestant area because I came from there. I see that there's a big gap between the main doctrines of the Protestant worldview, which is the sola scriptura. Like I've heard that so many times.
Yeah.
Even I didn't know when I didn't know Latin and everything, the sola scriptura and so on, sola fide, all this stuff, and the Reformed tradition, Luther, and also the New Reformation, and so on. Like I've seen all of this, the big tradition that is coming after the Reformation and everything. I've experienced that, and I see that today, especially in Brazil, there is a big distance between whatever Luther or Calvin or others, champions of the Reformation said, and what is actually happening.
Yes.
So I see today that it's today we have a new kind of medieval whatever Catholic Church in the Protestant world in Brazil. That's why I see that there's a big gap in I mean, phenomenology speaking, I say. But if you go to the theory, if you go to the doctrines or their systematic theologies, they look all the same. But actually, there's a big gap in there. So that's why when come to the subject of law, I was intrigued because law means many things to different people, especially in the Protestant worldview.
Yeah.
So that's why for me it was like, okay, you guys talk so much about law, but what it is, what is law indeed? Just tell me from your own doctrine, sola scriptura. So that's why I went deeper into this and see what Paul or the apostles, even to Jesus, what law meant.
Right. Basically, if I understand you correctly, you say what I think is there's a huge schism between what they say and what they do. That's the first thing.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is what I have been observing, as much as I understand, is slowly, gradually, with time, the law just kind of fades out of the whole religion.
That's true.
Nowadays is kind of like I don't know. It must be similar to what happened when Constantine, in that era, in terms of the pagans. I don't think there's much difference between Christians in general and people in general. You understand? They all just talk about faith, but in terms of their actions or behavior, there's very little difference between Christians and the people who don't profess to be Christians. That's my observation. There's so much talk about grace, and I think you had a few pages about grace and the law. And I think at some point, I don't know when, but it seems Luther and during the Reformation something happened when this law against grace kind of dynamic happened.
Exactly.
What do you think about that?
Yeah, what I see, you know, that this conversation, the whole conversation of law against grace, it's a big misconception that actually Luther created. You know, he was living. If I could understand in very general and simple terms, and this is not my own ideas. Of course, I'm quoting from many authors here. I mean, I could say. There is a very important book, which is Paul and Palestinian Judaism from E.P. Sanders. You know, in the 70s, he wrote this book, and it was amazing. Academics, especially in the U.S., many people just claimed him for that. And it's still going on these debates and like the perspective of Luther. Actually, before him, there is like many discussions, but actually was the first one that mentioned about the misconceptions or perhaps the Western mindset regarding the law and the life of Christianity and so on was Christian Stendhal. Christian Stendhal, you know, he was a Lutheran pastor, and he just came about and he said, you know, you guys are reading Luther. I mean, whatever reading that Luther had regarding Paul was wrong. And then it was a big, you know, for a Lutheran to say that's huge. And he was in Harvard University at that time. And then later on came after him, as I said, E.P. Sanders. E.P. Sanders, he just constructed on that. He went deeper into reading the Dead Sea Scrolls and and understanding about the Qumran community and so on. And he could amplify even more that Judaism, as Luther points out, it's not a religion of a legalistic religion.
Right.
This is a big Western mentality that actually later on created what we saw in Germany, a Holocaust and everything. But in Judaism, there's no such a thing as legalism. Actually, what we see in the New Testament is an attempt of the Jews to protect the people of not going into sin, but not that they were saying, "Oh, if you have to behave to be saved." Actually, no. The idea was even for Paul, in the Old Testament also, that you were saved because you're seed of Abraham, because of the promise that God gave. This is salvation by grace. Yeah. This is completely salvation by grace. And the Jews knew that we are the elect race. We are the elect people. Now we have to behave not to lose this status. That's why you have all these discussions, and with Jesus in the New Testament and so on. So the perspective changes completely. It's not law against grace. Is grace plus law. It's different. It completely shifts the narrative right there. So we see that Paul now he's not writing to the Galatians or anyone just to say you guys are falling from grace because you're trying to keep the law. No, he's doing the opposite, saying you guys are saved and you're making those who wants to enter in the covenant through the grace, you're putting stuffs for them that is not needed. So it's the narrative just shifts. It's interesting.
No, I understand and I agree totally. I agree. Even the name Pharisee comes from a kind of fence thing. I think it's what it means in Hebrew. So they try to build a fence around the law, as you said, so people,
Yeah.
right? So people wouldn't break it. And again, this what you say, and I believe wholeheartedly this grace plus works. And I think I understood it quite well from your writing, and also I found many other people proving this. Exactly the same thing, that Jews or Israel, let's say, they didn't think they have to keep the law perfectly so they're gonna be saved, or that's going to be their
That's
way
correct.
to salvation. They exactly thought what you say. If you are in the covenant, then this is the rules for the covenant. Otherwise, you are not in the covenant.
Yes, that's it.
And
That's
this is what I told you a few minutes ago. Christians don't realize, in general, they do not. If they don't do the law, there's nothing distinguishing them from other people. This was the thing to distinguish the people of Yah from everyone else. And I think, and I'll pass it back to you, what you say and what I say now, people, Christians, quite a few of them would call this a work-based salvation. They just don't understand. You heard this, right?
Yeah, I've heard that. And I would give an example, very simple and very contemporary for this. It's like, for example, I'm a Brazilian, okay? And now I came to a land which is completely different from mine. It's Turkey, and I live in Turkey today. And I have to, as a person that is within the boundaries of Turkey, I have, to behave like a citizen of Turkey. Even if I'm not a citizen, like I was not given the right to be a citizen or not. I have to behave like a citizen. That's the whole point. But in the Bible, it's the opposite. Actually, when Jesus says, like, like Paul, or even say, you guys have now the rights of those that you're belonging in the country of God already. You are citizens, basically. Now, if I am a citizen, of course, I have to behave like a citizen.
Right.
There is no way that I can live in another country, and trying to apply my own laws in here from Brazil. It doesn't make sense. I'm in a different jurisdiction. Now that's basically, I see basically that's the difference. I am keeping the law here now, not because I am going to be saved someday, but no, because Jesus said I am saved. So that's why I keep the law, because I'm living like I'm saved person. This, I see very clearly where in the Ten Commandments chapter in Exodus 20, if you open there, in the first line, God says to the people of Israel, it says, I am your God who saved you from the land of Egypt. It's like, it's paid, it's grace, salvation by grace.
Exactly.
And then he comes, now, therefore, there shall not be gods, before you. So now he start giving the law, he start giving the law to the people after the act of salvation. So it means they are belonging already to the covenant. They are there, they're within the covenant. So because you are within the covenant, it's impossible not to keep the amendments of the covenant.
Exactly.
That's it.
But that doesn't even make sense. Not so. I think you mentioned this as well. You are saved from your sins, basically, which is breaking the commandments or transgression.
Breaking the commandments.
Exactly. So you are saved from the consequence, or even the punishment, which is eternal damnation and all that. So you are saved by grace, meaning, like, you get a loan from a bank. You need, I don't know, $2 million. Okay, here you are. That's $2 million. Do whatever you want. Nonetheless, you have to pay it back monthly. Otherwise,
exactly,
I want to take it back from you, because I'm not going to just give you money for nothing. And I think this is why so many times debtors mentioned in the Bible. You know, even parables, people who owe, this is a debt, this imagery of debt, owing money. I think this is what God wants to show people, that favor or grace is giving you upfront. You know now, okay, fine, you are there. If you do what I say, you will be there. You're not there now, but you will be. So this is the problem. But
I see there's a shift, you know, exactly what you're saying. Like if you go in the Western theology, you know, you saw that, of course, Western theology drank a lot from philosophy on the Greeks, and you know the fathers of the church, and so on. We have the like the patristic. It's very wide in the West, even to Protestants today. And you know, I see that this East and West ideas of law, it's a very important point, and that's why I start that in my thesis in the second chapter. I start mentioning, you know, how these ideas of law are so different to begin with.
Okay, would you explain that, please?
Time, yeah. So anthropologically saying, you know, today there's many studies in anthropological way, and there's this notion of a guilt and shame perspective or worldview from in the people of the, you know, the Middle East and people of the Semitic origins and so on. Especially here in this region where I live, there's this huge perspective. They basically they function. The society functions between shame and honor. So whatever is honorific, this is good for the society. This is good. This is a common good for everybody.
Right.
Everybody agrees on that. And whatever is shameful, it's worse than to be guilty of something. It's shameful. It's too big. You know, this shame honor perspective. In the West, this is different. We don't have this shame honor perspective. We work by a very different basically perspective, which is guilt and you know, how do you say that?
Punishment.
The one which has no problem. Not forgot the name in English. Innocent. Yeah, thank you. So if you are innocent or guilty, that's the whole perspective. You know, we're always trying to find the guilty of this or the innocence of that. We like that. You know, and when we function between this. So now Paul, as an amazing missionary he translated the Semitic culture of honor and shame into guilty and innocence. And you see that later on this developed so well that most of the forefathers that we had in the Catholic Church, they were all lawyers.
Yeah.
So they always have that just righteousness by faith. The theology treatises, they are all written in a legal language regarding law, right? So that's the whole point, because the perspective of law in the West, it's so different from the East, because they see law in the East, and even the Jewish, I would say the Palestinian Judaism, as Epicenter says, it saw much more law related to the lifestyle, you know, in a behavior manner, more than, you know, a set of rules that you should keep on following and so on. So yeah, it changes the whole conversation, you know, if you keep that in perspective. This is amazing.
I think that helped a lot to turn people away from the law. Just the vocabulary people use: law, transgression, sin, guilt.
Yeah,
it's much easier to turn people away and then say, okay, this God is just one. He wants to punish you, and he just wants to find the guilty and then condemn people and send them to damnation and all that. So the whole language changes the perception of people of the Torah, which doesn't even mean law, right? It means instructions or teaching, rather.
Exactly.
Or somehow you show the way how to walk, and so many times you can read it. Just learn my ways. I showed you my ways. walk in my ways. You know, much.
That's it.
And I think it's the adversary or Satan who manipulates language for his advantage to turn people away. And this process started, as you said, perhaps with the Reformation. And by now, you just see the full fruit of it. And the fruit of turning,
I would say,
right?
I would say that actually started even before the Reformation.
Sorry, yeah, of course.
I would say that, you know, it started right there with Augustine when he just compartmentalized, you know, he make it self, the quest of the self. He reads the Bible and he applies to himself. So it became a very Western idea already. Individualism. The individual is the important, you know. So they look at the salvation of the individual, of the self, of the one, and completely excludes the you know, the idea of the whole, of the covenant, of the people entering in another dimension now with the love of God and so on. So it just comes to a self-perception. You know, you read, and that's why he reads Paul. You know, I would say I love that quote. I forgot who said that now. I wrote here in my thesis somewhere, but I quoted so many, I don't remember anymore. But basically, the story or the history of Christianity, it's like the history of how do you say that? You know, commentaries or perceptions of Paul. They start reading Paul all throughout history, and they start making history of Christianity right there. So I would say Augustine was the stumbling block for that. He was the first one that starts seeing Paul very westernly, if you understand.
No, I get it, and also I think you are right. Actually, it didn't start with Luther or Reformation. Nonetheless, that was the start of the modern era of basically lawlessness.
That's true.
And if you go back, and I found many quotes from so-called church fathers for my work in bachelor's, and it doesn't seem to me that they had the exact same idea as Christians have now. They held the law. That's
true.
To a lot higher esteem. They didn't think, this was something like. Of course, there were people who wrote that, but even just if you look at the way they lived, they regulated their lives. There's so many times they go back to the law, even how to organize them, so how to behave, how to love, how to handle money, business, whatever. So
everything. Right. They would always talk about, you know, the virtues of the law. Like if you put virtue of the law and just make a quick search in the patristic, you will see hundreds of virtues of the law. So what is the law these guys are talking about 1,700 years ago? You know, like what is this law? Like
I think the writings of Paul contributed a lot to this diversion from the law. And I don't blame Paul at all, because I believe this is intentional from the part of God to filter out people who do not love the truth, because they just gonna take the easier path. They're gonna say, oh yeah, the law is abolished, so goodbye. And this is intention. This is his intention, to make it difficult to understand. So we need to search it, and we need to go to him to show us, what do you mean? Do you mean for 4,000 years everybody was killed and destroyed if they didn't obey this law, and now we can just forget it and live the way we want and that's just say, oh yeah, I believe in you? So this is a little bit silly, I think. This
the whole conception of abolishment of the law, I think I exhaust perhaps in my thesis on this, you know, like this abolishment of the law. It's a huge misconception. You know, like we believe there is sin today. If there is sin today, it's in the Bible, sola scripturally talking. sin is the break of the law.
Yeah,
Well,
right.
if there's no law, there's no sin, my friend. If there's no sin, why Jesus had to come here? You know, why Jesus had to die? And if there is no death of Jesus, there is no grace. So what we are talking about? What is the whole thing? If there is no law, it's the building block for all the other understandings of Christianity. So if there's no law, there's no sin. There is no sin. There is no grace. There's no grace. What we are talking about, basically,
Right, and
that's so simple.
it appears that the Torah is much more than just a set of rules for the community. If you take that out of, just imagine a world without thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not steal.
Yeah.
If you take that out and you say, okay, it's free for all, that there couldn't be life on this.
Yeah, you know,
planet.
and something that calls my attention, especially that if you ask any Protestant, that's I see the gap right there. If you call any Protestant people, and then you say, well, okay, the law was abolished, and then I read thou shalt not kill commandments, and say, oh, is it
Oh yeah.
still? Of course, yeah, they would say yes, this is still currently. But I see from the 10 commandments, the fourth commandment is the problem. So
Why do you think that is?
it's not. You know, I think that's very, very interesting. Perhaps even eschatologically speaking, there is a meaning on that. It's impossible. No, I live in a Muslim country, which is technically should be keeping the Friday as the day of worship, right? But if you ask which day is today, today is Sunday, and which day the shops and everything is not working. Yeah, it's especially Sunday. They don't work on Sundays. So I would say why? How come that is happening? Why this is happening? The whole world it rests on Sunday. Who put this law? Who created that? And then I see very clear throughout history the attempts of the papacy to change the laws of God, and especially this law, the fourth law of the Sabbath. I see, you know, in Daniel also what the friends there did, not to
Right.
bow down in images
Exactly.
and so on. And perhaps today the Protestants, they're seeing the importance of not bowing down to images and worshiping images. But I asked them, you know, more importantly perhaps, or equally important, I would say, than the image worshiping is the Sabbath day, is the Saturday, is the seventh day of the week. It's not any day. Sabbath is not a day that I choose.
Right.
It's the seventh day of the week, and everybody knows when the first day comes, but nobody knows when the seventh is.
Of course.
So that's why I see a big gap, you know, in the concept of keeping the law, and how important, eschatologically speaking, it is for the church to understand that. When Jesus says, you know, I'm living in a Muslim country, and Jesus himself, he says, I am the Lord of the Sabbath. You know, when he says that, what the people around him would think about him?
Well, Christians
What
think
he's talking about?
Christians think, oh, he's the Lord of the Sabbath, so every day is Sabbath now, so you can do whatever you want.
So every day Sabbath now, right? So, but I see very clearly connection. I am the Lord of the Sabbath and the Creator of the Sabbath. You know,
Right.
who can? I see a deep connection right there. So, how come people cannot see that? So that's for me, you know, in my thesis, I was blown away when I saw that.
Listen, I think the dividing line between people who make it and who do not is the love of truth, because Paul wrote this about the love of truth. I think is Thessalonians, 2 Thessalonians. I try to find this.
Yeah.
Hang on for a second. I think he said that just a second. Oh yeah, and about the Antichrist and all that. Hang on first. Give me a second, Daniel. You hear that?
Sure. Basically, what I saw, you know, I was saying, like, in the commandment of law and especially the Sabbath, I see a deep connection there with the, you know, the acts of creation of the Almighty God, and Jesus saying, I am the truth, like, I'm here, look, hey, hello. So I see this connection deep, when I just understand that when they say abolishment of the law, and whose authority was that? So that's another question that I asked in my thesis. Whose authority
Right.
someone could change such understanding of law, or such practices of the law? And then I went and I saw in history. I have many many examples in the 300s. It was much easier to keep perhaps creating a syncretism between Roman religion
Right.
and in Christian in Jewish religion. I'll say even Christianity. I wouldn't say Christianity in that point, but in what the doctrine of the Messiah, and then that was too easy for them to just keep doing the practices of the
Right.
Romans, and keeping the sun day, right, the day of the sun, and the worship of Mithras and so on.
I feel this sort of accommodation of pagan practices and religious syncretism, this just something characteristic of Christianity throughout the centuries. I think this is the main trait of Christianity, obviously led by the Catholic Church later on, and the main line church, because they needed power, they needed money and power over people, so they had to make this unholy marriage between the ruling class, the secular ruling class, and the religious rulers. And once you make that connection and relationship, they just made it tighter and tighter, and obviously they had to give up the law. And just one more thing, you mentioned Christ, or Jesus being the truth. This was the passage which says, and with all deceivableness, this is Thessalonians second letter, chapter 2, verse 10. So with all deceivableness of unrighteousness in them that perish, because they receive not the love of truth, that they might be saved. So there's a key thing to receive the love of truth, because that will drive you forward to find out what God really wants, and not what other people say or what I want him to want, but what he really wants. And if you love the truth, then you will always just gravitate back to his instructions, which is the Torah.
Yeah.
So
that's indeed.
What do you think? Do you see this? This is not particular about your paper, but what do you think about Muslims? Because I lived 7 years in London, and I met many different people, and what I saw there was exactly the same what I observe in regards to Christianity. There is a watering down of Islam, right?
Yeah.
Did you observe that, or have you?
Yeah, I see here, especially, I don't know, it was interesting experience to me, because I got in contact with many Muslims, and I have many Muslim friends in here. And I see that's a huge, especially where I am, I'm in Turkey, right? So there is a huge ignorance regarding the scriptures, in a general sense. Like, so there's a huge ignorance. They really don't. I remember, I have a friend, and I gave him a Bible. He wanted to read and so on. So I said, okay, so you read, just go through, start reading the stories and so on, because he thinks that the Bible is like the Quran, right? So I said, well, it's not even similar. You should read to have an idea. So I gave him, and he started reading, in Genesis. He saw the story of Abraham, and all Joseph and everything. That's a story, right? There's a history there and so on. very simple language and everything, the Torah and everything, and he went reading. And he told me, Daniel, I'm so impressed. You guys have so much information. And I was like, well, dude, that's true. I wish all the Muslims, just would break this, I don't know, this misconception, this prejudice against the Bible itself, and they would read. It's a book that they should read.
Right.
I read the Quran many times. I have the Quran right here, and I read it in many versions. I read that, and I have all marked. This is the Quran in an English translation too. So I think it's important to for people to read the sacred books, right? From I would say even sacred books, but the books of the traditions, the big
Right.
traditions. Read the Tanakh, read the Midrash, read the Talmud. This is our stuff that is sitting there for a long time in history. And if you don't know the classic books of the traditions, you basically you're talking nonsense. So I see that it's a huge ignorance in the Muslim world as a general, whatever is regarding religion of Judaism or regarding Christianity especially. And yeah, many things they would I would agree with them regarding especially the Catholic tradition, the Western mindset, and as I'm saying, the Roman Church, what they grabbed from the Roman religion, right? And what the Christians would say as the idolaters, or anyways, as they say here in Turkey, the gavurs, the gavur religion,
Right.
which is the kufar and so on. So anyways, I think it would be much less problematic if they read. There's a huge misconception, and that's all. That's what I would say.
Right. So there are many people, I think, during history and even nowadays, who categorize the Torah. The ceremonial law and all that.
Oh yeah.
When do you think that started, and what is your take on that?
Ceremonial. This is something. It's a little bit for me. Even when I was researching, it was hard to put a scope on that, because this started much before even Christianity. There was like certain categorizations.
Mhm.
Whatever, Sears opened. So I see that there's it's a very hard topic for just trying to scope the classification of law. It's a daunting task, because if you go back in the Jesus days, they already classifying laws, and whatever, dividing into things in there and here. So what I see that perhaps in Paul's mind, it's more, I'm talking about Paul now, like what Paul sees as law, it varies in different topics. He used the word nomos for law, and I see this as the Torah, not only as the Ten Commandments,
Right.
when he using the word nomos.
Oh yeah, of course.
And then I also see what is called the works of the nomos. So ergatunemu in Greek. So this expression is hugely debated among scholars. Hans, what is his name? Well, I have, anyways, I don't have the whole names in my mind, but we have huge, there's so many scholars, and Pauline tradition is huge. You can imagine that it's 2,000 years
of
of
course.
Paul commenting and so on. But basically, we have there, for me, big names. It was James Dunn. James Dunn, he talks a lot about this works of law. And I have a personal friend. It's a Greek theologian that lives today in Cyprus. His name is Kim Papaioannou.
Oh yeah, you
He was a
cite him
professor.
quite often.
Yeah, I cited him. He has an amazing job. He's made an amazing work, which is Israel Covenant and Law. This book basically gave me the whole idea, of writing this topic and so on, going for this. He writes basically that he shows, from really scripturally and outside also, scholarly speaking, it shows what would be the best way of understanding works of the law. Because as it was, in my opinion, of course, in my opinion, I saw many. There is a guy there from the Catholic tradition, also Matthew something. He wrote a whole thesis in on the patristic of works of the law and so on. But looking into the terminology and also in the patristics, and also and how would a Jew of the first century think regarding works of the law? Yeah, for me it was the best, King Papayanu, and he basically summarized all the visions, and he's showing that this is actually works related to the temple.
Okay, yeah.
Works of the law, it's works related to the temple. So whatever the law makes you work, right? So it's really ritualistic, the baths, the sacrificial system, the garments and so on. So all this temple works there, he would call it works of the law in Pauline's mind. And this is it makes sense in a series of perspectives.
Of
If you
course.
see, yeah, it just it really makes sense because of the ethnic boundaries that we see in the first century between Jews and Gentiles, and all these things. Now Gentiles becoming part of the covenant, right? I wouldn't say parts, because they were part of the covenant with Abraham through Jesus, and now they wanted to sacrifice in the temple. But how they would sacrifice in the temple if they were Gentiles? The Jews would never accept that. So now there was a huge trouble for Paul to solve. So socially more than theologically, Anyway, so I see that.
That would be represented by the breaking of the carpet or the veil of the temple.
Yes,
that would be the dividing.
There comes the whole Christian perspective of like just abolishing the law, but actually the law is not abolished but fulfilled, which means now the law has the same meaning, bigger. It's bigger. So it's not now that you will be sacrificing, going to the temple, but you keeping the law. You continue as a believer, I would say a Jew, I would say you're not becoming a Jew, but you're becoming like part of the covenant as a foreigner. And you are not going to sacrifice in the temple for that. You don't need,
Right. Yeah.
So the whole thing of works of the law, it's connected to that, and actually, it makes much more sense in the first century.
Even now you say this, even belief or faith or emunah or pistis, whatever, even that makes more sense in this system, because as long as you don't even need to sacrifice now. And you realize your sin, and you just say, "Okay, sorry," and I move on, and that gives a much bigger emphasis to belief, because before you had to take the animal and you saw the whole thing, but now you don't see it. Now you just think of the sacrifice of HaMashiach, and then you believe that, and you repent. And sincerely, you feel bad, and you feel guilty, and you feel condemned.
And you become ceremonially clean.
Exactly. And you change and you move on. So hence Paul writes that this is about belief, because you don't see it no more, the sacrifice. This is one thing. And the other thing is, nomos often means, I think, different things, and I had the same or similar idea or view on this as you just mentioned, that many times it means sacrificial system. Even the whole letter to the Hebrews, that's the whole chapter 10 mentions so many times blood, sacrifice, temple, ritual, priest, whatever. And you cannot say, oh, this is about abolishing the law. No, this is about abolishing ritual sacrifice and temple work. And that is the work of the law, what you do there, I believe.
Yeah, that's it.
So,
That's why
Yeah.
the complication with Luther also, because he sees everything, all the laws, keeping the Sabbath, behaving
Yeah,
or
exactly.
whatever, as works of the law. And that's a huge misconception, because in the Jewish mindset, he's not seeing keeping of the Ten Commandments as works of the law, but he's seeing the ritualistic purification, the rights as part of the of becoming a part of the covenant and so on. So not that, I mean, or not even losing your status in the covenant.
In the
So
covenant.
yeah,
That's why
and I think
Yeah, go.
this discussion came up because of the Dead Sea Scrolls that start to bring a new light regarding Judaism of the first century. Is not what we see here when we look at today's Israel. We see like a Orthodox Judaism there, and we think that Jews are only that.
Yeah,
Especially,
right.
I'm saying the Western mindset, right?
Yeah.
And if you go to the first century, it's huge difference. There's a huge difference.
Oh,
Anyways,
yeah.
that's
No, that's fine. I get it. In terms of the Qumran, and I think there, at least I can see. I've been following this in the last maybe 12 years, so not before, but now. But even those 12 years, I've observed a definite resurgence of keeping Torah and giving back the esteem to the law what it really deserves. There is a shift, I think. I think the truth is coming out not only regarding the Torah and our need to adhere to that, but also I believe in regards to the Trinity and the nature of incarnation. So I think this is truly a time when the truth will prevail. I'm not saying today or because of us, but I'm saying because of millions of people now have the information, right?
yeah,
Which they
that's
didn't
correct.
have before the internet. But now
Yes,
you
they
have. You
didn't
just go
have.
online, you listen to 3 podcasts, 6 hours, and you can change your
Oh my!
life. You can learn
In
more.
4 minutes,
But
you can have all information you need for
exactly.
for
Exactly.
changing your mindset. So
And I believe this change is happening. Nonetheless, I wanted to ask you about so work of the law. I think I understand now, but I read something about in regards to the Shabbat or Sabbath. I think we agree that's important, and that's still. What do you think about the rest of the festivals, in the biblical
yeah,
festivals?
I
What
think
is your take on that?
I see. That's for me, it's a current work for me also. It's a current study perhaps on the festivals and everything. And I see, I see the festivals, to me especially, they're very important. I see all the festivals as eschatologically speaking, very, very meaningful, full of meanings regarding this, the life of salvation. I see that in the whole Torah, in the whole Tanakh, in the whole Bible. I see one aspect that God wants to share with mankind, and this is salvation. Is to put them, is to make them more probably heirs of the covenant, right? Is to make them to live within the boundaries of
Right.
God's kingdom.
Right.
So it's God's kingdom bringing, and of course there is different language. There's the salvation language. There is the covenant language. There's many ideas on that and theologies regarding this. But I see that all the same, and I see that the festivals, especially, they have big impacts on perhaps like just moving the meanings throughout history all together. For example, today is as they call the how they call it in English. I don't forget it. I forgot it.
I don't know.
In the Catholic tradition, is today is the Palm Sunday. They call
Oh yeah,
Palm
yeah,
Sunday,
yeah,
right?
Palm Sunday.
Is the day that Jesus rose from the dead, and so on. And we have some different ideas. Perhaps it's more likely, later on the month and so on. But I see that here there is a big, huge difference also between what the Catholics or the Catholic tradition put as festivals to the Western mentality, and also what is the biblical.
Yeah.
I don't see that. I don't see that as a huge thing, especially for me personally. For me to apply them and to do, because it's not something that I would do. Like I don't have power to change a nation and
Right.
change their ways of resting. I rest in these days because biblically speaking, they are.
Oh, you mean you follow
follow
the
yeah. I try to rest
right.
on them. I try to keep them as my Sabbaths,
like Easter, you mean?
constantly.
Okay.
Yeah,
But
like
what I was wondering was about the biblical feast. Leviticus 23 lists them, because I had a few conversations with my teachers and tutors and all them in regards to this, because what I tried to highlight was, you as Adventists say the Sabbath is important. However, in that same chapter, when he lists all the other high days, they are not important. And I see there some sort of logical conflict.
Logical problem.
No?
I would agree.
So
I would agree. Yes.
So why do you think?
Yeah, there is a
why do you
logical.
think that is?
Yeah, I think again, the way that, and he enters now in the way of celebrating it. The way of celebrating is also perhaps, now we enter in again another tradition, right? So the point is, I think I see the sacredness of the thing, and I mean the Sabbath is not even it's not this how can I say, is not even
Questionable?
doubtful. It's not
It's not even
questionable at
questionable.
all. Like the Sabbath is not even questionable. It's throughout the Bible and everywhere. And the feast also, the importance of that through the history of the prophets, showing something. It's amazing. So in my concept today, the feasts, they are telling me a bigger story. Again,
Oh yeah,
they're
right.
not only important by themselves, because they are the feast, so you should do that. I see that this is huge. It's much huger. I mean, much bigger than the little point of not doing anything or whatever, or resting that
Yeah, I
day as a
understand.
Sabbath and so on. So for me, that's the way I see the feasts, and basically.
No, I was just.
So I have in my calendar here, like especially the Pesach and everything, and I have here also the biblical feasts I would go for.
Yeah, of course.
I have all of them in my calendar, and we have a special prayer on them. But yeah, I would go to what is in the Tanakh more than to the traditional way of
Right.
doing it.
No,
That's,
because
if you understand.
I think if you think about this, the biggest difference or biggest jump would be, obviously no one's going to start killing and stealing, and that's just not what you
Of
do.
course,
And
yeah.
this is a reason for the Shabbat to be changed, because that's something
That's true.
people easily can just say, oh, that's just a day, so let's do it Sunday, it doesn't matter. All the other commandments in of the 10, they are quite how can I say, tangible maybe,
Clear,
or almost
tangible.
like you can do this or not. But
Yeah,
the
of course.
Shabbat is something different. It's something in your head, really. No, it's not. Of course, you do
That's
things and
true.
don't do things, and this is the same with the festivals. And I think if you think about festivals as the whole year would be revolving around these days. So you'd have to
Yeah.
prepare. You cannot just turn up like, okay, I go to the movie and next day is Pesach. So you need to prepare for that, to stand there and to be able to say, okay, I'm worthy as much as I can
agree.
and can be to receive that the blessing that comes with it. So it would help people to change and do the self-reflections. And I think I have
Yeah.
one more question for this time, and that would be circumcision. I couldn't, but now I guess I understand. As an Adventist, you'd say that circumcision was basically replaced with immersion or baptism, but I'm not sure. What do you think of circumcision as an eternal covenant given to Abraham?
I understand. Yeah. For me, I think it's circumcision is a very important thing. It is important to do for those who are coming from a Jewish family, a Jewish ethnic race. And I would say that because, I see the circumcision, it had a very important meaning to the Jewish nation throughout the ages, and it still does. The point is, for as someone that is not a Jew, I was not born a Jew. My mom is not Jew, so I am a Gentile, if you understand, in the biblical terms. So yeah, we especially if you see the discussions in the New Testament concerning that, those who were not circumcised should be circumcised now to enter in the temple or not. So Paul starts saying, like, because you were not born from a Jewish mother, basically, it's not a need. You don't need to go and sacrifice in the temple because you believe in Jesus and you are part of the covenant, not to be not needing in being circumcised. So in my mind today, I don't see circumcision as a need for a specific covenant approval or entering in the covenant. I am entering the covenant through Jesus, who accepts me within the covenant made with Abraham, right? And this Abraham covenant, it's given to the Jews. So the Jews, they have right on that. And that's why I see Paul's discussions. Another one more mention with this King Papaioannou. He says in his book, he goes very deeper into this circumcision thing. He sees that the whole discussion of entering and keeping the law or not was the circumcision, because circumcision in their minds of the Jews were the entrance ticket for you to be part of the Abrahamic covenant. And Paul goes against that and says, basically, you wouldn't need that, if you are not a born a Jew. But if you want to enter in the covenant, even so, you can start keeping the law without being circumcised. This is a specific point right there. I don't see this idea of, okay, so you don't need to keep any law or anything. No, you don't need to keep the circumcision or the laws related to the temple. I understand circumcision as related to the temple too, and basically that's what I see.
That's what just one. This just occurred to me now while you were speaking, and also a few times in the past, and I haven't really made a big deal about this. But nonetheless, I think it is a big deal. The method you decide who is an Israelite. I think Jewish is very misleading. Even just the term is misleading.
That's true.
So it's very misleading. Let's just accept I don't, but let's just accept that the people in Israel now are Israelites, biblical Israelites. I don't think so, but let's just take it that. Which tribe are they from? Okay, so how could they prove that they are the biblical Israelites, as there is absolutely no method of proving that any one of those people related to Abraham, because there's just no way. There's just too much time has passed.
Yeah.
They can say, oh, my mother was a Jew. Okay, fine. But Bible doesn't even care about the mother, never. It always on the patrilinear. So Abraham, Jacob, Isaac, David, Solomon. So mother doesn't even count.
If you see even in the line of Jesus, there are many people that were even
none of
Israelites.
Women don't even count in the lineage. So that's number one. So that you don't even know now. But the other thing is, how would you know if you weren't Jew or I wasn't a Jew? Even if, say, my mother is not a Jew, there's no way of checking. So just saying, if I just say, oh, I'm not a Jew, therefore I don't need to circumcise, how can you prove that you're not a Jew? You understand? I think this is quite misleading to associate the biblical Israelites with those people, because everybody thinks, okay, they are Jewish, so the law is for them. No, we cannot prove who Jew and who is not. No
today,
matter, you understand
I would
the dilemma?
In this setting, in this setting today, where you don't have really a clear ethnic understanding of things, it's very misleading. I would agree, because countries were actually measured before by your ethnicity and not by the land you're by. This landmarks of borders are so recent. We don't in Jesus' time didn't happen. You could live very well in China and be a Jew, or be an Israelite. Jew comes from the Judah, right? Those who live in Judah. The same thing for Arabs. Arabs, they're called Arabs not because there's a race, ethnic boundary saying that they're. There's the area. It's the Arabic,
exactly.
the Arabia right there. So I think that's the whole practice. They should be. I would say that when I mean by Jew is those who are acquainted with the tradition, the Judaism, Jewish tradition, and so on. And that's why, for me, as an Adventist today, it wouldn't make much sense to practice the Jewish traditions regarding the law. But I see the law as important. I practice the law.
But even
as
then,
much as I can.
Can you see yourself now making a distinction within the law in your head? You say there are some things in the law for Jews, nonetheless we don't know who they are, and there are some things for everyone. So I think even subconsciously we all infected by these ideas of Christian tradition.
This could be true. This could be true. I cannot negate the whole thing. You're saying I have to go deeper into that.
No problem. No problem.
I am in a journey, and I'm
of course. No. I don't want to talk
always going through.
Into
but we have that. Especially in Adventism, we are very open throughout the whole world. There's many kind of Adventist perspectives regarding this. And
I know, yeah.
I have a very good professors there today. They're in Israel, and they practice. They do many things that the Jews there do. So I'm very distant from that, but that's interesting the way they do that.
Well, I think
I see that the importance is cathologically, because I see something growing today, an anti-Semitism. I don't agree with this term neither, but to sociologically speaking, this is a term,
I
right?
agree, actually. I agree.
I don't agree because what is Semite today?
Oh yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Today.
It's ridiculous.
So who is Semite today? So the term I don't agree with, but sociologically speaking, in the social sphere, I would say It's an important thing. And I see this anti-Semitism growing. I would say the hate against Judaism and against the Jewish practice and everything on the name of Israel, right? Because they call themselves the Jews, right? So I see that for me, it's kind of eschatologically even. I see this hate everywhere. It's amazing. There's must to be something there, regarding this hate and so on.
I have
And yeah, this
I have a theory about that.
yeah.
Yeah, I
So,
do.
anyways, I mean, I would say that this is when I read the Bible, I see a very I don't only see that a very opaque, old bunch of writings. No, I read this in a very updated way. I see that what is happening today, what is in there, and all the circumstances, all the big, I would say, the great controversy that happens, in the background of the Bible is still going on, and I see, how much the Jewish people was hated throughout the ages. I mean, I was reading a paper on the 1490s in Europe. They were just it is amazing. It's insane the hate that the Jews saw throughout the ages. So for me, this is somehow attractive. Why this is happening?
Yeah.
Why this much hate? And I see that it comes a lot from Christianity. So it came
yeah.
now it's
I
coming
agree.
from Islam, and it's
I agree with that.
this for me is something amazing, and I that's why I see that the Jewish people, when I say Jewish people, those who practice the law and the Torah and try to keep the commandments, they are very hated, and I put myself in this sack with them,
I
in
think
this
exactly this
bucket, because I keep the law and I believe in Jesus too. So I am in this bucket
This
too,
is
and
what
I feel the same hate.
This is what I wanted to say. I think the common denominator is not your ethnic background, it is the Torah. And it has always been the common denominator.
Yeah.
Even from the beginning, when so-called Christianity started to part ways with so-called Judaism back in the days, in the early Christian tradition, even then the problem was people who kept Sabbath, circumcision, dietary law, and in general Torah. They wanted to depart from them, everybody, because the secular power dictated a different set of laws, and you cannot do both. So you had to compromise, and this is the common denominator, and that's why people, and this, I don't think anti-Semitism is a correct word, because for many reasons, but nonetheless, the name Israel, Jew, Torah, law, the hate is against this, not the people. The adversary in the background stirring up this hate against Torah, because he wants to deter people from following it. You understand what I'm trying to say?
That's true. I agree.
Most
100%.
of the people will always comply with the outside pressure, and there's a few.
What is amazing to me, what is amazing to me, I don't know how much you're acquainted with that, but the Adventists, they have been studying the book of Revelation for more than 100 years now, and there's lots of commentaries and I mean in lectures on this and so on. There's a very good teacher that I love. I have a book on him here. He's a French professor in one of the Adventist universities. I think he's retired. I don't know, but Jacques Ducan. Jacques Ducan. He has a Jewish background, really, and he accepted Jesus and he became one of our professors there. And he writes amazingly on Revelation, especially. Like he goes into Revelation and he sees this book as an amazing treatise of history of the Jews, of those, I wouldn't say Jews as you said, but those who kept the
Right.
commandments
Yeah. Yeah.
of God and believes in Jesus right there, you know. So this goes through history and all the persecution that
Exactly.
happened,
Yeah.
and it's happening, you know, right there in before our eyes nowadays, and the combination of everything. So that's why I see the Sabbath has a very important point
Yeah.
in there,
Oh yeah.
the
Absolutely.
law, you know, as a
Yeah.
very eschatological point. If you go in Revelation 14:6, you see an angel proclaiming that the
Message.
judgment of God has started, and the judgment of God. I mean, he calls the attention of the whole world. He says, "Fear God and
Keep
keep
His
His
commandments.
commandments."
Right.
Yes, exactly. So right there is like something that is happening right now today.
Yeah.
People are start coming, as you said, millions of people start seeing the importance of keeping the commandments. And then you see also that later on in Revelation, you know, I think it's 12 and 13, you see these two women. And in
Right.
13 and 14, you see two women there. No, it's 12 and 13. Sorry, I'm just
12. Mhm.
mess. Yeah,
The
so
woman
you see these two
clothed in
women,
the
one,
sun.
yeah, clothed in the sun, and then you have the other woman which goes to the desert, and there is a dragon after her. You know, and you have all the if you compare verses with verses, including in the you know in the Old Testament there in the Tanakh, you just you see an amazing picture of what is God's people today and what they are facing, and especially because they keep the commandments of God, they are being persecuted,
Yeah.
as you said. So
It's always, and this is my last word, and I pass it back on to you so you can say your um, final thoughts. But this persecution, this book has always been about people who believed and adhered to Torah and God's instructions. It's never been about
mhm,
nobody else. Of course,
yeah,
there's a highlighted role for a specific people who is Israel, and we are yet to see who they really are. Nonetheless, we will. But besides them, this book is for the people. The message you mentioned is Revelation 12 and 14, I believe, or something,
mhm,
or 14 or something like that. The people who keep the laws and the belief of the Messiah. And
of the Messiah,
this
exactly.
too, you need this too. You need faith, because your faith will provide you with the resources to keep the law. Because if I don't believe, there's no reason to keep the law, because I just don't
Yes,
believe.
exactly.
And you can keep the law, but if you don't believe, that doesn't make no sense anyway. So
I
belief
keep the
and keeping the
law
law.
and I believe in the Messiah. I keep the law because these are the commandments and the rules, I would say, or the amendments of the covenant. And I believe in the Messiah because he provides me a way of, you know, of keeping clean,
Yeah,
keep myself
exactly.
clean
Exactly.
for continue to keep and to stay within the covenant. He is the way that keeps me within the covenant,
Yeah.
despite of you know of doing it or not. But for me, I need him to allow me to enter in the covenant, and I need the law now to continue
Yeah.
within the
I
covenant.
think this is a very important message, not just your paper, but also in general for people to understand. This is, if they could understand this, there might be change in terms of how generally believers approach Torah and law. Daniel, I thank you for your time, and please
Yeah,
share.
it was a pleasure.
It was excellent. It was awesome. Please share any kind of contact information, whatever you want, where people can find you, and I will provide that in the description. and I thank you for
Yeah,
time.
you can contact me on my Instagram. It's Oliver Dan with 2 N's in the end. Oliver Dan. And there's a little how to call this? Hat there. Yeah, so
Hat.
you can find me there. You can, I don't know, you can message me through Instagram or also in Twitter. Oliver Dan is the same. Not Twitter anymore. Now it's X. I always forget. So yeah, you just message me. We will talk. It will be nice.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for your
You can
time.
read also in academia.
Oh
Just
yeah,
read the paper there.
academia.edu and
In
then
academia.
Daniel
Edu, yeah. That's it.
Oliver. Okay, so
Yeah.
thank you again, and we gonna pick up from here. Goodbye.
Thank you.